But it is time to rank your teams. I don't think I'm going out on a limb saying that the San Francisco 49ers are going to be number one on this list. But then it's where does it gets interesting after that. Who's your number 2 and 3 specifically first?
Again, my list is always predicated on numerical numbers. Yep. It has nothing to do with what I think, and it's all predicated on the 18 areas that I believe determine outcomes of games. And the Cowboys are number 2. They moved up a spot. Baltimore, which didn't play, moved down a spot. Kansas City, which had a tough game, but they moved up a spot. I don't know quite how that happens, but they did. And then Miami has moved up. Miami's been moving up steadily. If you look at Miami's numbers in the beginning of the week, beginning of the season, like if you go back to week 2, and that's why I try to do it every week and look at it and see Miami at week 2 of the season, Miami was in the middle of the pack in the low, almost to the 20s. And you say, why? Well, because their defense wasn't very good. Right. But now that their defense has really become the strength of their team, they've now become a top 5 team. And what's going to happen in Miami, as I wrote about the other day for VSiN, is they are identified as an offensive juggernaut. Yet in reality, they are a defensive, control the pace of the game team. And if they can find a way to play physical against these good teams, these good defensive teams that seem to slow them down because of their front and because of they take away Tyreek Hill, Miami can still win with their defense. They can still win with their defense. So you can't say they're a finesse team coming to play. No, that's not the case. They are really good on defense. So they're in my top 5. The Eagles, which have really been in there, and I don't know why they have, but because they were good at being able to finish games and win the middle 8, all those things, they were in the top 5, but now they've dropped out. Their numbers, Stormy, are not good. Mm-hmm. When you look at them, they're the worst team on third down. That's hard to be. It's hard to be this bad of a team on third down. They're a little bit like the Lions last year. Not as bad defensively in terms against the run, but against the pass they are. They can't cover. I think they're 26th in the league in yards after contact on tackling by their secondary. Horrendous. Bottom 5. It's really the Jets and the Commanders somehow ended up in a tie. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. The Commanders have the week off, which is good for us. We'll see that. The Patriots would be much better than the 29th team if they had any offense at all. Their defensive numbers are good. Their offensive numbers are horrendous. Arizona, no change. Carolina, no change. And the Giants, no change. I still don't understand how the Giants are going to play Tommy DeVito. I still don't understand the logic behind that. When you really break the games down and you watch how many times he's been sacked because he's had to hold the football, and then you're going to start him in a game, I just find that hard to believe. You're basically telling Tyrod that gave you everything that he could to play well, that you're going to basically sit him on the bench. Think about this, Stormy. Tommy DeVito, his sack percentage is 21.1. 21.1 sack percentage. Now, Daniel Jones is just as bad. One of the things that I complain about, he holds the ball, he can't process. He's at 15.8. The one guy who got rid of the ball quickly was Tyrod Taylor at 10.3. Yet they chose to start DeVito. And so every time you get sacked, it's a negative play. How do you overcome that? He's not good enough to overcome it.
Tyrod Taylor, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we didn't really get enough time to get into it because we had to hit the break. But Tyrod Taylor has just had the most brutal experience as a quarterback in the NFL. You think back to 2020 when he's with the Chargers and things are going really well, but he gets his lung punctured by an injection for a team doctor. Then his time with the Browns in 2018, he suffers a concussion. Then in steps Baker Mayfield after that, and Tyrod Taylor's out in the wings. Now he breaks a couple of ribs, has to miss time. And he's being passed over for Tommy DeVito hasn't. He has been a fun story. I love that the fans are into it. I love that the tailgates are all about Tommy DeVito and that you talk about likability a lot, and clearly the locker room likes this kid. But it's not like the offense has been lighting it up with Tommy DeVito. And Tyrod Taylor, exactly. I feel like, has done enough to earn an opportunity. So I do feel for him. I understand why he's disappointed. I do want to follow up with some of your thoughts, though, on that top 5, Michael, especially as it pertains to the Miami Dolphins, because you talk about the way that they're known as being a great offensive team, but struggling against good defensive teams. Their losses so far this season, 48-20 at Buffalo before all of the injuries for the Bills, 31-17 loss in Philly against the Eagles, 21-14 against Kansas City. Like that, a defense that we know is very stout and very good. It seems like it's only been recently that we've seen it all come together where the offense is performing and the defense is performing. They've held opponents defensively to 17 points or fewer in 4 of their last 5 games. How good is it for them that they're peaking at the right time, it seems? They're in the 1 seed right now in the AFC playoff picture, a couple tough games still ahead. But, I mean, if they could put themselves in a position for home field advantage, I think the sky's the limit for Miami if they continue to play this way, no?
No question. That's why I wrote the column, because I think they are peaking at the right time. Since, even when they played Kansas City over in Germany, they were playing well defensively. They held Kansas City to 14 points. Not that Kansas City is a great offense any longer or this year, but remember they scored. The Chiefs scored with their defense. They have shut people out. I said last week on the Sunday show that the money was moving towards Washington, and I kept saying, look, I don't know why I didn't recommend it as a play. I'm an idiot, but there was a good chance that they were going to get a pick 6 in the game, because when you're so one-dimensional like they are, Washington, Vic will make you play left-handed. It's a little bit like Tennessee. Tennessee can't play the pass at all. They're horrible. Jeffrey Simmons isn't going to play. Okay, now Will Levis is coming to town, and Derrick Henry's going to get taken away from him because they can play run defense. And when Henry gets taken away, that means Levis is going to have to make some throws. Can he? Can the Titans, which typically score around 17 points, can they score 17 against Miami? I'm not sure. But can Tennessee hold Miami to 31, which would be the cover if it's at 13.5? I think that's a challenge too. Tennessee, we have to, and I learned this last week, we have to stop with the Tennessee Mike Vrabel stuff because it's not applicable this year. This Miami stuff is applicable because you bet them on these numbers because their offense keeps trying to score. They're going to keep trying to get Tyreek Hill the 2,000 yards, plus their defense is playing really well.
So while the Miami Dolphins are a team that's peaking, we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles dropping out of your top 5 and that they're struggling. They're coming off their worst loss of the year by far against the San Francisco 49ers. Each of their last 4 wins prior to that were 1-score games, went to overtime with the Bills. Even Washington took them to the wire. How big of a concern is it for you? Yeah. How big of a concern is it for you that Philadelphia is struggling the way that they are, getting close to playoff time?
Well, I think it's got to be real concerning because we've seen Philly hasn't played really to the level we saw them last year all year. They haven't. I've called them the Super Bowl hangover team for 50 minutes because in the last 10 minutes they turn it on, they win games. I don't think they've ever been in that rhythm that they had last year in terms of being explosive to start the game. They don't look as fresh to me as they did last year. And again, it's a long season. When you go to the Super Bowl and you're practicing more, all those things, they're good problems to have. But they create some kind of sense of tiredness as you go through the season. Look, we can sit here and say all we want. I mean, the Patriots are 2-10. You can make the case that they should have won a couple more games. You could also make the case that the Eagles could have easily lost to the Bills, the Chiefs, or the Cowboys, but they didn't because of their resiliency and their will. I don't know how far that can carry you moving forward.
Also, I say the 49ers are their worst loss by far because of the margin of victory for San Francisco. But what is really worse, losing that way to San Francisco or just losing to the Jets, period? Because I feel like it's ugly either way.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.